Tension is once again brewing across the Caribbean. In recent weeks, reports have surfaced that Russian military cargo planes landed in Venezuela, possibly unloading missile systems and radar equipment. What might sound like distant news is, in fact, a strategic move that could reshape power in the Western Hemisphere. For the first time in decades, Moscow appears ready to project hard power into America's backyard, using Venezuela as a potential launchpad for its missiles. The question now is, how far could this partnership go? And what would it mean for the balance of power between Russia and the West? The current standoff began earlier this month, when a U.S. naval strike destroyed what Washington described as a drug smuggling vessel off the Venezuelan coast. Several people were killed in the incident, and within hours, Russia condemned the strike as a violation of Venezuela's sovereignty. According to Reuters, the Kremlin accused the U.S. of provoking instability and warned of serious consequences if such actions continued. In response, Russian officials offered to strengthen Venezuela's defenses. The Anadolu Agency reported that Moscow pledged military assistance to Caracas to safeguard its territorial integrity, sparking speculation that missile systems might soon follow. For Russia, this is not just about Venezuela, it's about geography and strategy. Establishing a military foothold there gives Moscow something it hasn't had since the Cuban Missile Crisis: a forward base within striking distance of U.S. territory. It's a powerful signal, one that says, if the West continues pressuring Russia near its borders, Moscow can respond in kind near America's. This isn't the first time Russian aircraft or equipment have touched Venezuelan soil. Tu-160 nuclear-capable bombers flew to the country in 2018 for joint drills. And since then, defense cooperation has deepened. But this time, it feels different. If missiles are indeed being deployed, it could transform a symbolic partnership into a strategic confrontation. For Washington, the implications are serious. The U.S. has long considered the Western Hemisphere its sphere of influence. Now, a Russian missile presence just a few hours' flight away could bring that assumption crashing down. If Moscow does deploy missiles in Venezuela, it would dramatically alter regional deterrence dynamics. Military analysts suggest that systems such as the Iskander-M or Kaliber cruise missiles could be part of the package. With ranges reaching between 500 and 2,500 kilometers, they would easily cover U.S. bases in Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and even parts of southern Florida. That means key American military installations, like MacDill Air Force Base in Florida, could suddenly fall within reach of Russian firepower. Flight times for such missiles could be measured in minutes, leaving Washington with almost no warning in a crisis scenario. The national interest argues that such a deployment would be Russia's direct answer to Western missile systems placed in Eastern Europe. Just as American interceptors in Poland and Romania sit near Russian borders, Moscow could now station its own deterrent closer to U.S. shores. The strategic logic is straightforward: balance threat with threat. Beyond the military aspect, this move would have deep psychological impact. For decades, the U.S. has enjoyed a sense of safety from foreign missile threats within its hemisphere. A Russian presence in Venezuela would shatter that comfort, forcing the Pentagon to shift focus and resources back toward the Caribbean. Moreover, the ripple effects would spread across Latin America. Neighboring nations like Colombia and Brazil would be forced to reassess their defense postures, while smaller Caribbean states could find themselves caught between two superpowers once again. The result, a revived sense of Cold War anxiety, only this time under a 21st century lens. For Russia, even limited deployments would serve their purpose, creating leverage. By holding a potential threat so close to U.S. territory, Moscow can negotiate from a position of strength, whether over Ukraine, sanctions, or global military influence. Before Russia's involvement, Venezuela's military power was limited and deteriorating. Economic collapse and years of sanctions had left much of its arsenal outdated. While it possessed capable S-300 air defense systems purchased from Russia, these were poorly maintained and struggled to stay fully operational. The Venezuelan Navy lacked resources, and its air force operated at a fraction of its capacity. In short, Venezuela could defend itself only on a small scale, not project power or deter a major adversary like the United States. But the introduction of Russian missile systems changes everything. With advanced S-400 air defenses, Pantsir S-1 mobile units, and Kaliber strike missiles, Venezuela could suddenly become one of the most heavily defended zones in the hemisphere. Its skies would be monitored by Russian radar, and its coastline protected by anti-ship batteries that could threaten U.S. vessels. Even if the missiles remain under Russian control, the symbolism alone would be powerful. For President Nicolas Maduro, it would mean political survival, projecting the image of a sovereign state protected by a great power. For Moscow, it would mean a geopolitical victory, proving it can extend its influence right into the U.S. sphere. However, the challenges remain immense. Maintaining these complex systems in Venezuela's fragile infrastructure is no easy task. Power instability, supply issues, and the cost of continuous maintenance all make long-term deployment difficult. Still, if the Kremlin deems it strategically valuable, those obstacles may not be enough to stop them. With each passing week, Venezuela is edging closer to becoming something far greater than a struggling nation under sanctions. It's evolving into a forward node of Russian deterrence. A launchpad not just for missiles, but for influence and message. Russia is back in the Western Hemisphere. That's all for today. Thanks for watching.